I think the right time to get the maximum benefit from the physician loan is to start in residency. That gives you a head start because that's what I did. The first one was the physician loan in residency. Where I live now, it was still the physician loan. So that's like 2 houses. And when I move out of this, okay, another thing I'm in the process of doing is purchasing a duplex.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe. And today we talked about something we have never talked on the podcast before. We talked about some international real estate. So if you thought maybe I want to consider buying a property internationally, or more specifically in Dubai, this would be a great episode for you. Today's podcast episode was with Dr. Gloria Esoimeme. She is an internal medicine physician who has gotten her PhD in health service policy and management, as well as a master's in global health. She's got a deep commitment to patient care and specializes in managing chronic diseases and conducts research on the physician-patient relationship to enhance healthcare outcomes. She's also a sought-after keynote speaker and coach, empowering professional women to negotiate salaries, improve work conditions, gain recognition, and achieve work-life balance. Through her expertise, she equips women with the tools to advocate for their worth and thrive in their careers. This episode was fantastic. We talked about her journey from Nigeria to the United States, where she's practicing medicine currently, and her potential journey coming up to Dubai. So you're going to want to stick through this whole episode and learn more about what Gloria is doing and the exciting opportunities that are coming forward. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's episode with Dr. Gloria Esoimeme. Dr. Gloria Esoimeme, so excited to have you on the Physicians and Properties Podcast tonight. We had some technical difficulties, but we got it figured out, and I'm looking forward to this episode. How are things going over there in Georgia?
Things are going really excellent. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Looking forward to hearing more about your journey, everything you're doing in your coaching business, as well as just heard that you got a unit in Dubai. So excited to talk some international real estate. We've never talked about that on the podcast, so that'll be awesome. Before we get to that, though, let's take a step back and just talk about your journey into medicine. Do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about your journey into medicine?
Oh no, I would love to share my journey. Alex, there's some people who were born to be doctors. Like when they were little, they knew they wanted to be doctors. That wasn't me. I wanted to be a lawyer. I did. But my mother, who is a nurse, for some reason, she felt she made up her mind that I was going to be a doctor. And here I am today. Even when I had problems with chemistry, my mother, she made sure I went to a private school. She got me like a private teacher and made sure I passed my chemistry. She did all she had to do to make me succeed in my journey to be a doctor. I'm Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria. I did my med school in Nigeria, and then I moved to the US. Time goes by so fast. I moved to the US like 14 years ago. And even though I love being a doctor, nothing gives me much more joy than the privilege of seeing patients and then just taking care of them. But one part of me just knew I just didn't want to be just a doctor. I know that sounds kind of like a doctor is big, I know. But so when I finished med school, I was like, okay, maybe I need to do a master's in public health. And I did it and I loved it. And I'm like, all right, so I love this. Then let me do a PhD so I can run the course of this. And I was thinking I wasn't going to go back into clinical medicine. And then I got into my PhD program. The way medicine is designed in Nigeria is very different from the US. So in the US, you go through, you get to high school and then you get to college and you do 4 years. And then after 4 years, you go into medical school. They kind of take our childhood because when you're like 14, 15, you start studying to get into med school. And then you're 17, 18, boom, you're in med school. So you go straight from high school to med school. And so it's just like the grind from day one. When your mates are partying or just being kids or college kids, you're studying really hard. And so I did that. And it's 6 years. And it's not like the US where everything is like really structured. There could be strikes and then that could prolong how much time you spend in school. Please don't just go as smooth as they go here in the US. Maybe that's just Nigeria. I don't know about other countries. I can speak about I can speak about Nigeria and the US because those are my lived experience. And so I moved to the US. I'm like, yeah, let me switch gears a little bit. Then I did my PhD. And then because right from when I was young, all I knew how to be was a doctor. When I was in my PhD program, I felt like something was missing because I was a doctor, but I wasn't practicing. I wasn't seeing patients. And when people go, what kind of doctor are you? And I'm like, I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and just complete the full cycle of, and then I got into my internal medicine residency. And then after that, I moved to Albany, Georgia, where I'm currently practicing as an internal medicine physician.
That is awesome. I should have introduced you as Dr. Gloria with the two
There's no
doctorates there.
such
That is awesome. I know you had mentioned kind of felt like something was missing and then went into global health and got your master's and then the PhD in health services and management. Was there something that, really led you down that path of global health and health services policy? Or was there an event in your life where you're like, hey, I'm feeling really called to do this?
I just knew there was a part of me that was designed for leadership. And I knew the curriculum in medicine wasn't feeding that part of me. Remember, I said I wanted to be a lawyer. And so it's still that thing. My mom is happy now. I'm happy too. But I was still searching for that. But I've gotten to the point where I'm no more searching for what's missing. I think I found what was missing.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you could still go back and be a lawyer, and then you'd be like just the most highly qualified person in the world. No, that wouldn't be very fun. Very cool. Well, so you got the PhD, did internal medicine residency. What was next for you? How was it kind of transitioning from Nigeria to medicine in the States?
So what the process looks like is you still have to take the USMLEs and then you take the USMLEs, then you apply just like every other person applies, and then you go through the match process and then yeah. But I had lived in the US for a few years, maybe because the master's took a few years, the PhD took a few years, and then I got so I lived in the US for a few years before I got into the residency program.
Right. Okay. And then med school in Nigeria, what was it like? I imagine the pathology there is a bit different. I spent 6 weeks in Zimbabwe and on a medical mission trip and had an amazing experience. Absolutely fell in love with Africa and the culture and the people. But I would be lying if I didn't say that the pathology was a lot different. And there were some really, really heartbreaking cases and deaths and things that we saw while we were there. So I'm sure it was probably, quite challenging in med school, but also probably really, really good learning from that perspective. What was that like?
So the main difference is our physical exam is a lot stronger. Well, when I was in med school, I think my physical exam was stronger than it is now, because now if I listen, I'm like, I'm not sure. Is that like what sound is that? Let's get an echo just to be sure. Then we didn't have that luxury. So that was like, 17 years ago. I don't know what it is now. So we would have to listen, and then you could say, okay, that's the kind of murmur that you have. You could pinpoint the chest and say, okay, it's this valve that has this problem. And I know it's regurg, it's not stenosis. We could do that with our ears. You could listen and say, okay, it's the middle lung that has consolidation, and then you're percussing and I just get on X-ray now.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It probably made you a lot better doctor. I think that I feel the same way. All we had was an ultrasound, occasionally X-ray, but that went down often. And so we were fortunate to have brought ultrasound with us. That was really helpful. But yeah, it was like you really had to hone in on the physical exam because, even for me, the history was a lot more difficult. We had interpreters, but getting a history was more difficult. And so that physical exam was everything. And I think it's a really good opportunity. I really do think that, every med student in the United States should have an experience like that. So one, they can see how great we have it and how much we take for granted, but also really hone in those physical exam skills.
I agree.
Yeah. Do you ever go back to Nigeria and practice medicine or anything like that there in Africa?
I haven't been. So some of my friends were talking about going back this year for like a mission trip, but I'm not. My schedule won't let me go this time around. But I've been back home but not to practice.
Well, maybe one day you'll be able to do a mission trip there. That'd be awesome. Let me know. I cannot wait to go back to Africa sometimes. I loved it.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, very cool. So residency in Albany, what was that like for you, internal medicine residency? And then how did that kind of lead into real estate investing?
Okay, so my residency was in UAB in Montgomery, the internal medicine campus in Montgomery. So when I was there, I didn't know. There's so many things I didn't know. I think my life has been filled with so many opportunities that just came from being lucky. Because I remember telling my sister, I'm like, oh, I think I need to get a house. And she was like, oh, okay. And then I started looking and I found something really little. I can't even remember how I connected with this real estate agent. And she said, oh, there's this program where you can do zero down. And Alex, I had like $2,000. So it's not like, so it's not like I had like down payment. It was like $2,000. And she said, oh, there's this program where you can do zero down. It's a physician loan. I'm like, oh, sign me up. And we went through the process. And that was still when it was the buyer's market. And the seller, they said, oh, we're going to pay your closing costs. And by the time I did my inspection and everything, I spent less than $2,000 just to buy my first home. I was still in residency. I was in my second year. I was not even an American citizen at the time. I had my green card, but I got the home and I lived there for my second year, my third year. And then after I put the home up for rent, and I've been renting that home since I finished residency, and it's been cash flowing. And so I moved to Albany, where naturally you buy a house when you move in. And I still got the physician loan when I got my primary residence. And then I knew when I was in my second and third year of residency, I started thinking of ways to save on my taxes. Because I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start getting the bigger salary. I need to think of ways to save on my taxes. And I saw the one way I could do it was through short-term rental. So my first year, I started in July. I started working as an attendant in July. And then I was looking for houses. I knew even if I don't get any place to invest in that first 6 months, my salary wasn't going to be that great. So I knew the main time to invest was the next year. And I did. I found a little 3-bedroom home. I bought that, set it up as an Airbnb. And where I live, it's so rural, and I just take like some risk because I'm not even sure. I wasn't even sure it was going to cash flow. I wasn't sure people were going to even stay. And I don't know if I didn't say this, but I'm from a really big family. Like I have 4 big sisters, 1 younger sister, 1 younger brother. And so I'm at the bottom of the food chain. So even when I make decisions that are for myself, I still have to defend this. I remember my sister, she's an accountant. She said, did you do all the feasibility studies? Did you know if it's going to cash flow? I was like, yeah. I didn't do any of those because I just knew, okay, what's the mortgage? I'm like, okay, this is what it is. If push comes to shove, if things don't work out, can I afford to pay the mortgage? I knew I could. So I'm like, all right, I'll take the risk. But she's more detailed. And she said, okay, so how did you come up with these numbers? I said, well, I asked my real estate agent. And she said, the real estate agent, that doesn't make sense. I was like, just leave me alone. She was just trying to protect me. But how I make my own decisions is I'm the big picture. I look at the big picture. I'm like, okay, I want to do this. Why do I want to do this? Because I want to save on my taxes. What if this doesn't work out? What's the worst that could happen? I'm like, this is the worst that could happen. I can manage that if that happens. And so I went ahead. I did the first Airbnb the first year. And then the second year, okay, I'm like, all right, I think I have some traction in this game now. And then I got the second one, and it's a small town. We don't have, like in Montgomery, where I got my first one in residency, we have military. So from when I moved, I started renting out to military, and I've not had a day without tenants in that home. So here we don't have, there is a base, but it's so tiny. There's no huge military presence. The schools are like, even though we have like colleges, they're like glorified high schools. It's not like you have a big college here. But surprisingly, I've had guests, the least I've ever had would be like 50% occupancy the whole time since I've been doing this for going on 4 years now. And it's a small town, but I've been having guests. But now I'm thinking of moving to something different. I'm thinking of moving to multifamilies. And so what I'm in the process of doing now is purchasing an apartment complex. And I didn't want to, so I have friends who met me. It was not even my idea. Like I said, I'm just lucky. They said, oh, Gloria, the way you're doing your real estate business, if you ever want to partner, we're here. And I said, well, if I want to partner, I'm not going to do like $20,000 here. I said, it's either you go big or you go home. If you have $100,000, that's when I'm going to partner with you. And I had 5 people who had the cash ready to work with me. And I have three others who were like, okay, give us a few more weeks and we'll be ready to go with you. And so I have that. Yes. So that's where I'm with my real estate investment in the US.
That's awesome. Yeah, I spent a significant amount of time in Montgomery, Alabama in the military over at Maxwell Air Force Base. Yep. Spent a good bit of time there. It's an interesting place, Montgomery, and there's some really pretty parts to the city and some really good food. So we had a good time there in Maxwell, and you're close to some of the beaches and so forth as well. Correct. So that was good. But that's awesome. I wanted to hit on a couple points that you made. So the physician loan, and folks have probably at this point listening to all the episodes have heard me talk about it a lot, but I'm going to foot stomp it one more time. You were able to buy a home with less than $2,000 out of your pocket. Absolutely amazing.
And I use the physician. It includes the inspection and everything that was done.
Yeah. It's amazing. I was able to buy one. My first house I ever bought, I was in residency in Florida, and I was able to wrap the inspections in and everything. And I only paid $58 out of pocket. And it was insane. And I remember being terrified that I was spending $58 to buy a house. $58, it still was a lot of money. And it's like, yeah, for the price of a decent dinner, I was able to buy a house that's almost doubled in value at this point. That cash flow is like $1,300, $1,400 a month. I mean, it's just crazy. I guess the brain is there to protect you. And so I want you to think through all the things that could go wrong. And I did, but I'm glad I took the leap. I'm sure you're very glad you took the leap as well. And then that started the snowball for you for the short-term rentals and the physician loan again. So I wanted to make sure folks really knew it's such a great opportunity. I think it is the best loan product that exists for physicians. That and the VA loan, amazing. No money down. The physician loan doesn't have a funding fee. The VA loan has a funding fee. So you have like a kind of a little bit of a down payment. It's a few $1,000s typically. But the physician loan just is amazing. So I tell folks, if you're in residency and you can get a physician loan and you can house hack your house with some of your residency mates, you are going to make money to live while you're in residency. And you can use that to start paying down debt or spending money. Yeah, it's just such an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think the right time to get the maximum benefit from the physician loan is to start in residency. That gives you a head start. And so you get that's what I did. The first one was the physician loan in residency. Where I live now, it was still the physician loan. So that's like 2 houses. And when I move out of this, another thing I'm in the process of doing is purchasing a duplex. And so I'm going to move from where I live right now and then occupy one of the units and then rent out this place. So it's still.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're just stacking and working your way up and acquiring more and more properties with less cash out of your pocket. It's a great way to do it to really maximize leverage. That's really, really cool. For the short-term rentals, what were some things that you learned throughout, your short-term rental journey? And then the other thing I just wanted to point out is you're doing quite well with your short-term rental business in a small town. And so there's a need, there can be a need everywhere. And so I think that's important for folks to understand as well, kind of figure out, hey, what are the economic drivers? How can I tailor that short-term rental or midterm rental? How can I tailor that to maximize income? And then also, of course, the tax benefits with short-term rentals are great. So what are some things that you've learned with short-term rentals in your journey so far?
Okay. So it's nothing close to the residential assisted living that you do. It's not close to that because you don't have lots of regulations, and you don't need to have a chef, or you don't need to have someone live in the house and care for your guests. But it's high maintenance. It's like running a hotel. So let me give you an example of something that happened recently. So before, I was managing my short-term rental myself. Like, I would respond to all my guests, but normally it doesn't snow here in Albany, Georgia. But like a couple of weeks ago, it snowed, and I had guests coming when it snowed, and my AC did not. For some reason, my cleaners, they turned down the AC to 30 degrees, to something really ridiculous. And so the guests, they got there at night and it was freezing. And the person who manages my Airbnb now, like my assistant, she lives in Canada. So there was no way she could go there. So I had to get up in the middle of the night, went over there. I went with my space heater. But when I got there, I was like, no, this is not going to work. And I had to book a hotel for them. So you need to have exceptional customer service. They were like two families because the Airbnb is a 3-bedroom home and they had kids. They came in for some event. It was like one night. It was just for one night. If it was multiple nights, it's different. I'm like, you guys are here for just one night. I can afford you guys to freeze. And then the next day you're leaving. So I'm like, okay, I'll go get you guys a hotel in a nice place. It was Marriott's, got them 2 nice rooms and all of that. And that's something that could happen. However, when that happened, so I reached out to Airbnb. I'm like, hey, this is what happened. I had guests. I had to go put them in a hotel. It was more than what they paid to even be in my place. So I'm like, all right, is there a way you guys can give me the taxis and all the fees you all took because this is what happened? And then Airbnb said they've never seen that happen before. And they gave me the full price that I paid for the guests. They gave me everything that
Wow.
they've never happened before. Like a host would not have guests in a hotel. So
Yeah.
it was just additional customer service because I'm like, if that was me, how would I feel? So, and then before, when I was managing the Airbnb myself, I remember there was a day I came home. I was still working as hospitalist at the time. Came home, I was just like, oh, it's been a long day. And then the guests, they were like, there are no towels. I'm like, oh my God. So I had then it took me a while. So this is what I recommend. I know Chia Goze has a program for short-term rentals. I don't know if she's still doing it. If you have a mentor, it would save you some of the trouble I went through. I learned myself. So now but if you have a mentor, someone who would hold your hand and walk you through that process, it would make life a lot easier for you. So, but now I've grown to the stage where I don't manage it myself, except when it's really, when I have to be there, or because I have teams now. I have like my cleaners, I have my maintenance, and I have different people who help me with stuff. But it's easier to have all of those in place to know what you need if you have a mentor. But that being said, it's still possible to do it yourself because I did it myself. It wasn't, I'm a regular person. If I could do it, people can do it, but it would save you some time. But the biggest benefit in the Airbnb was just the tax. It was just the tax benefits. Like, my when I got my check, I was asking my CPA, I'm like, are you sure? Because you can do cost segregation on each of the houses. You need to talk to your CPA and the engineers to know if it would make sense financially. Because sometimes when you put in the cost of doing the cost segregation, you may not make much from it. But I was lucky. I like my first and second year that I bought each one. I got like a huge check back from the government.
That's awesome. It's always good to get money back from the government. We had some really good episodes with Amanda Hahn. She's an amazing lady in the tax world, just absolutely incredible. So folks, go back and listen to Amanda Hahn's episode. We talk a lot about cost segs during that. That's awesome. Yeah, Airbnb, short-term rentals, it's hospitality. It is tough work. We've had a good bit of short-term rental experience, and we still have a short-term rental in the mountains here in Colorado, and then we house hack our basement. We have like a basement apartment here in Colorado Springs. And things always go wrong at the worst time, like Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas Eve or whatever it may be. And it's always at the worst time. Recently, we had a guest who was staying here in our basement, and we have a keypad lock, and I would encourage everyone to do that. And he got in really late, and he got inside, and then he set his phone down, and then he left his phone in the basement, and he went back to his car to get some stuff and locked himself out. And didn't know the key code, didn't have a way to get back in, didn't have his phone to contact anybody.
Oh my God.
And this is Colorado Springs in the winter, so it's freezing cold outside. And we sleep with 2 sound machines on because we have an 8-month-old who doesn't sleep well. We have a 4-year-old, and so I sleep with earplugs. And so apparently he was ringing the doorbell for a long time. And luckily our neighbor across the street, she's the nicest person ever. She saw him out there and she was like, hey, is everything okay? And he said what had happened. And so she brought him into her home, and he slept in her home that night. And then they got a hold of us, and we were able to get him in. And through all, we felt so bad. We felt absolutely terrible. We've never been in that situation before. I would have never even thought that. And, luckily he still left us a 5-star review and everything was fine. But it's just crazy, the things that happen. And, I'm really grateful for our neighbor, for her hospitality. Yeah, she should have gotten the 5-star review. But
You should have.
so it's just funny. Yeah, Airbnb short-term rentals. It's an interesting game, but it is a great opportunity. There's still a lot of need if you do short-term rentals right, and definitely some good tax benefits. So it is still a great investment strategy.
Cash flows, you get a cash flow from, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I never tell anybody to buy a short-term rental just for the tax benefits, because then I think that can be a slippery slope. There's great opportunity, but what if things change with the tax law, or what if something happens and you can't rent it out at all, regulations, et cetera. So I think as long as you're breaking even and/or it's a lifestyle investment, and you're understanding that you're going to lose some money each month, ideally you're going to cash flow each month or cash flows throughout the year. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. Yeah, that is great. Well, I'm glad to hear overall it sounds like that's worked well despite some of the crazy stories and things that happen with short-term rentals. Let's talk about Dubai. So what is going on in Dubai?
So I had never been to Dubai until a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like, okay, let me go visit Dubai. I've heard so much great things about Dubai. And then one of my sisters, she knew of this real estate agent, and she reached out to him. She was like, hey, my sister, he has this interesting story. His name is Ainsley Duncombe, something like that. So he has a very interesting story. So my sister was like, oh, reached out to, that's my same big sister who kind of monitors my life. And she was like, oh, my sister's coming to Dubai. She does real estate. She would like to talk to you about real estate. And then he was kind enough to say, oh, when she gets here, ask her to reach out to me. And then when I got there, he kind of showed me the lay of the land. And the way real estate works in Dubai is not like it works here in the US. Maybe some people do that, but I'm not aware of that style, where before you see the physical building, it's all gone. People buy. So it's like people buy the idea of real estate. So they are building a few casinos they have so the way the whole UAE is structured, they have different emirates. So they have Abu Dhabi, they have Dubai, and there's another one that's just close to Dubai. Dubai is like the real touristy place. Then Abu Dhabi is where they have oil, and they are bringing casinos. They don't have casinos right now, so they are bringing casinos. And then those areas where they're bringing those casinos, they are planning on building real estate, and they are selling units there. And so after I talked to the agent, and I take risk, and I've been lucky so far. So when he showed me the plan, I'm like, I think I'm going to get one unit here. And he said, okay. And the coolest thing is, Alex, they will let you pay with your credit card. And you get all those points back. Like I've never, because I kind of hack everything. I try to maximize. I'm very efficient with my money. So I'm like, can I? He's like, yeah, you can swipe your card. And then I did. And then I was talking to my sister. I was like, yeah, I met Lee. She was like, oh, you did? How did that go? I said, I bought a unit. It's serious. Yes, I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What does financing look like in Dubai? Were you able to get a mortgage on it, or otherwise it's a big credit card bill?
So, when you're swiping it, when I swiped, I made sure I had the cash to pay for it. So you pay in installment. You pay in installment. So you could start with like a 5% payment, and then after a few, I think after like 2 months, then you may end up paying like another 20%. Then after like a year, you could do another 20%. So it's stretched out over time. And so by the time the building is complete, you maybe 60% complete, you can finance the other. And then some people sell at that point, and it's sometimes some people it's business. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. And sometimes it's when the building is complete, you already have double equity of what you invested in the building.
Wow, that's awesome. What was, I guess, kind of what's the real estate market like there? Any specific, like, I know you mentioned the casinos, and of course, everyone's going to Dubai and visiting and super touristy, but what's the real estate market like?
So the Airbnb market is huge there. So I'm thinking of moving to Dubai. I am. And so some of the things I've done here, I still want to do the same there. Like get a few units and then use it as an Airbnb. If you work there, because if you have a job there, you can be considered a resident there, and you can get loans from the banks there, and I think you do 20% down payment, and they can give 80%. I'm not really sure of those. I don't have that experience. I only have the knowledge of what I was told, but I haven't gotten to that stage yet. But yes, then you can buy and then rent out as Airbnb. But the thing about the market is that because it gets really hot in the summer, so you have like a big downtime. But people still come to Dubai, but that's when it's least expensive. But then the colder months, then people are booked 100% from what I was told.
Wow.
I don't have that experience yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited to hear more. So obviously you like Dubai. What were some things that you liked about it when you visited there?
So they have like the crime rate is like less than 1%. Like and there's a lot of money in Dubai. Like so many so if you want to grow your business, it's a good place to grow your business. And there's the real estate market is huge. So I'm thinking of transitioning. Once I have the things I'm doing here, once I have all of those sorted out, then our next podcast will be from Dubai.
That's awesome. Maybe we'll do that one in person because that would be really cool. That's all. Yeah, in your Airbnb. That is awesome. Yeah, that would be really really cool. Well, yeah, my wheels are turning just thinking about all that and those opportunities. Are there any specific outside of buying real estate there? Are there any specific like visa requirements or travel restrictions or anything like that that you'd have to work through before you could go over there for an extended period of time that you know of?
So, but I plan on getting a job as a doctor when I go over
Okay.
there. Yeah, so I'll have to get it like a visa. But just to go visit, to go buy real estate, because they just asked for my passport. That's all they asked for. No one asked me. Yeah.
That's wild. What is the physician job market look like there? Do you know?
I heard like Americans are in high demand. Like if you are American trained or trained in the UK or Germany,
Okay.
but then you have to go through, I think every country has that. You have to go through their licensing process. Takes between 2 months, and 2 months to get the license.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's exciting. I'm excited to follow along on your journey and see how that goes. Keep us posted for sure on that
I
whole
will.
process because that's definitely a first for the Physicians and Properties podcast. Very cool. Well, let's pivot a little bit. I know you do some coaching and you
Yeah.
mostly focus on coaching with women and helping
Yeah.
them kind of gain recognition, improve their work conditions, negotiate salaries. What got you into that?
It's just a need that I saw. Like this, so I went to where I trained last Friday. Today, what is today? Today's Thursday. So it started from the need, and then just seeing how I was able to negotiate my own contract. And I know many women are not as bold as men. We just kind of go with the flow. So currently, I work 3 days a week. It's full time. I have all my benefits. I have all my holidays off. Alex, when I think of the number of vacation days I have, I can't even call it out with my mouth because my friends are like, Gloria, you're always traveling. But because, yeah, I was able to ask for what I wanted. And I believe everybody can have that same experience because people just complain and never really do anything. And it's not like they don't want to do anything. They don't know how to do it. And I feel like that's a need I can solve and help people go through that process where it's a win-win. Because even now, when I told my employers that I am considering leaving, they're like, what can we do to keep you? I'm already working 3 days a week. What else can
Make it two, keep the pay the same, and give me more vacation days.
But it's just knowing how to position yourself in such a way that everyone is winning. It's not like negotiation. Some people think it's about, arm wrestling the other person, taking advantage. Not necessarily. It's creating an environment where everybody wins. It's looking out for that person. Why are you still looking out for yourself?
That's great. What are some other tips and tricks you've learned in the art of negotiation?
Oh, let me tell you this story because I take pride in being a badass negotiator. So when I was in Dubai, I went to this store and the guy said it was like an outfit that you wear if you go into the mosque. It's an outfit you wear for females. And he said it was 300 Dubai currency. And then I did the math. I'm like, okay, that's not too expensive. Oh, all right. I'm like, I said 150. And he said, oh no, 250. I'm like, okay. I said 200. And he said, fine. In my mind, I felt like I had done a great job. And then because I went for a tour, when I saw the tour guide, he said, oh, well, they go for 50 on the local currency. And I'm like, dang. So the point I'm trying to make is you can't, what would give you an advantage when you want to negotiate is knowing the value of what it is you're negotiating. You want to buy a house. So what are the comps in the neighborhood? you are negotiating for a job, how much do people in your specialty make in that geographic area? So those are things you need to know. And when you know that, that's when you can start to apply your negotiation skills. So it starts from you knowing the value of what you're negotiating at that point in time.
Yeah, that's really important. The price anchoring and, kind of setting that range that's still above what
Correct.
the average is in the area can be really helpful. There's a great
Yes.
book on negotiation called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. If
Voss,
folks want to
yeah.
learn more. Yeah, he was an FBI interrogator. I mean, not an interrogator, negotiator, the complete
Yeah.
opposite. And amazing book. And there's so many really great tips and tricks that are applicable to
Correct.
even just being a doctor and like talking to patients, but also salary
Right.
negotiation and so forth as well. Super important. So yeah, great book to read if folks haven't read that. That is awesome. Yeah. Well, knowing your worth, I think, is just so important all across the board. And folks are definitely worth more than they probably let themselves, or than what they think. And so it's really important.
Sometimes it's not even what you're worth. It's because we're priceless. We're
Right.
omniscient. We're made in the image of God,
Yep.
so we're priceless. But the
Absolutely.
service, the service you're providing, because sometimes if you think your service is more than what it really is, when you start negotiating, people are just going to walk away. Maybe you are an internal medicine doctor. You say, oh, I want to make like $2 million a year. No one, that's overpriced.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just knowing what your service, the value of your service, or if it's a product you're buying, what the true value of that product is.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, I know you may have a few spots for folks who may be interested in doing some coaching. I know you've done a great job empowering women and really helping them achieve that work-life balance, but also negotiate more. So if folks are interested in having an awesome 3-day-a-week job, traveling all over the world and getting a lot of vacation days, and they want to reach out to you more and learn more, how can they do that?
They can find me on LinkedIn, and I have some materials out there. They could read it for free on LinkedIn. They can if they send me a message on LinkedIn, either me or my assistant would respond, and then we can have a strategy call to know if we are a good fit.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so excited for the future for you, for Dubai, for everything that you're doing in Georgia currently. If I can help you out in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up. I know it's late over there on the East Coast.
Yes, but Alex, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, it's been Dr. Gloria Esoimeme and Dr. Alex Schloe with another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast, signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.